Dzień dobry wszystkim. I will speak in English, unfortunately. No, ja rozumiem waszą mowę, bo ja jestem z Polski, a mieszkam w Belgii, w Brukseli. People-centric planning and Build Back Better principle. Having had a chance to speak with you earlier on during the workshop and during these individual discussions, I understand that most of you are familiar with this subject, so you more or less understand what does it mean, Build Back Better, but how to put it in practice, how to embrace all these ideas about building better and about green cities, about sustainable cities. This remains a question. So I would like to share with you some practice, but I would really like to emphasize that we international experts, so-called experts, urbanists and planners, we are here not only to share our knowledge, but we are here also to learn from you, because your experience is really, it's enormous in this time of war. And also personally, what I see, how you not only redevelop, but develop the city, like here in Lviv. This example is even proved by this venue where we are now. It's really amazing. So congratulations for this, for the beginning of the sharing of the knowledge. So does it make sense at all to speak about the green city, the sustainable city, and the current conditions of a total destructions? In a big part of Ukraine, you have loss of lives, loss of housing, loss of jobs, businesses. There is total destructions from my perspective in some areas. And how to approach it? And does it make really sense to speak about it? So if we say yes, I think yes, it makes sense. Where do we start actually? So I have to say how looking from the human perspective, I would really like to emphasize that people are very important, most important in our cities. I put here the picture of this little boy who is sitting on the ruined house. How do we make this little boy happy again? That's the main question. So I would like to share with you also some, let's say, statements which struck me when I had a chance to speak with some of mayors. One of them said, we would like you to show us where the modern Europe is heading to. Others said, we would like to be Europeans with you. You are Europeans, of course, so it's not out of question. But also I would like to share with you the quote by Lisa Ferreira, the European Commissioner, from last week, from the event related to New European Bauhaus. She said, it is important what you do, but it is even more important how you do it. So really the process is super important in these approaches and rebuilding or developing anything. So here I have a few reflections about the cities, and what we can observe, all of us, is that cities create our environment. We create our environment through building the city fabric. So if we do it wrong, we have those floods, we have the traffic jams, we have suffering people. If we do it right, we have the vibrant cities with high quality public spaces, and we have happy residents, and we have this little boy who can bike safely wherever he or his parents want to go. So we have to be really aware of this influence we have on our cities, but also on the fact that the cities pay us back. So of course we are impacted by the natural conditions. We cannot forget about the weather conditions, the hazards related to also seismicity in some areas. So all this has to be included in our thinking about cities. And the Build Back Better means learning from the past experience, but also embracing the new ideas and implementing them in our daily approaches as citizens, as planners, as stakeholders, as residents. So people-centric planning is really important. We need to allow a space for discussion. I just can back up what Fulko said and many colleagues before. It is very important, maybe one remark to these presentations before, it is important to start inclusion of people from the beginning, not when you have the project ready and and then you just ask people, do you like it or not? Or maybe there are two options. It's too late. It's really the best is to start from the beginning to understand what the citizens want, what they need. So practical steps in this approach to make this little boy happy and looking in the nice city in front of him. Well, first of all, we need to well evaluate the baseline. So to understand where we are and to be able to evaluate the city sustainability. It is not easy. That's why the practical approach is quite important to it. I would like to share with you my practice. So what we do, we look into this different city perspectives, which I will describe on the next slides, to understand the needs thoroughly, to really have a deep knowledge about it, and also to look into the interlinks. So once we know the baseline, we can see the strengths and the weaknesses of our cities or the needs of our residents. And then we can, knowing these gaps, we can look for integrated actions, look for co-benefits. It's very important if you want to speed up the process of recovery, because it's not only about building infrastructure, it's also about addressing many other needs. So if you have a choice, do I need to build a park or do I need to build a sewerage? This question can be phrased differently. Can I add other important elements to the infrastructure which I already have to build because it's essential? So here I wanted to show you this kind of radar. It's a tool developed by Tractable. The good thing is that you can also have a free self-assessment tool, which is more simplified, but it reminds you of this perspective of the city. So basically, we look into 6 different perspectives, which are divided into teams. We don't have time now to go through all these details, but briefly, it's to understand that the city functionality has different layers, and those layers are interconnected. So we speak about circularity, connectivity, about productivity in the city, but also attractiveness, resilience, and so on. None of the cities which we scanned this way, it is about more than 80, none of them have a full scale covered. So by these colors, when there is a full color, you can see that this is the strength, and where are the white elements, you can see the gaps in the right top corner, you can see example of such scan results. And here it comes to the action. So when we think about any investment, we need to understand how it covers those different layers. And I wanted to just elaborate a little bit about this picture. You can see a tree in a nice public space. So if we want to have an action called, I want to plant a tree, what does it mean? It's not only putting something green and alive in the center, in the city, but it's also about climate resilience, because the tree will bring shadow. It's also about biodiversity, because this tree will bring place for birds, for other insects. It's also about attractiveness, because it creates a nice ambience, and also health, because people can walk and rest there, and so on. So if we have this mind settings in place, if we have it right, we can address much more in implementing actions, because we can add up by just simply thinking about it. You can add like a water fountain for a bird in the summer, so the bird can have something to drink. If it comes to your mind, it is not much more expensive action, right? So it's about residents, and the residents are not only people. Actually, it's also, we need to make also space for other animals and plants. So here, just for practical approaches, when you think about these actions, I would say we can ask ourselves 2 types of questions. One type is, what about if I plant a tree? I already described it, so we can say this action will cover our gaps in these different perspectives which are marked here. But there is another question which maybe is even more relevant to the situation in Ukraine. It's about what, just a type, an example. What if I want to build a sewerage, a system? So can I add something to that? Ukraine will receive a lot of support and funds, but these funds are never sufficient. And if you want a speed recovery and you want to optimize the use of these resources? This is very important question. So thinking again throughout the perspective of the cities, different perspectives, you can try to integrate different elements in this infrastructure related action. You can think from the socio-economic perspectives as well. So knowing that this simple action of creating infrastructure, which requires digging out linear holes, then you can say, okay, maybe if our city has troubles with the traffic jams, it's car oriented, maybe we can build pedestrian paths or bike paths along this investment. Maybe we could add some green areas, some banks for elderly people to sit on when they walk these ways. And it doesn't cost much more, but the effect is really much more improved than just building simple sewerage and infrastructure. So it also is cost efficient, because if you think of making those projects as separate projects, of course, it will take more time and more money. So that's the main idea about integrated approach. Just try to think from different perspectives. So just to summarize what I said, people are in the center of the planning of the cities. We really have to engage with the residents and look from different perspectives. We sometimes lose what we call personas. Like, think if you are a young mother with 2 children and they have to be safe, or think what if you are an elderly lady which has to carry the heavy shopping and so on. So also discussing and thinking from different perspectives. And this holistic approach is really key in the way to build sustainable cities and also to use your resources in the most efficient way possible. Thank you for your attention. And if you want to contact me, there is, it's not here, you look on my webpage, justconsultancy.eu. And also the free scan, which will remind you about these perspectives. You can Google it by putting in brackets 360 city scan, and then it's a very simplified tool, but it's free and you can use it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's please questions. And yes, I would like also to thank you for extending this discourse about participation and making also these examples about also infrastructural objects, actually, that we could also think about them, I don't know, elements that we never thought in about participation at. And from the other side, we also need a common language to discuss it and create it. And as a self-critique, we are saying that we have very fragmented structure of the institutions, and we don't have a well-developed communication between them and also between the civic society. So it's something that, that is up to be done. But from your experience, what should be the first initial steps in order to develop this common language? I could assume that it's quite abstract question, but probably as well as we think with some tactics in urban planning. So probably there might be also some tactics in developing this common language as well.
Yes, for me, the common language is actually the structure. So professionals, planners, we know the structure. Our audience, the people, the residents, they don't know the structure, but they know their needs. So the way to work it out is to listen to the voices of the people, and then to put it in our structure and to understand what does that mean. And also, I would like to also share with you this experience that leaving space for testing is very important. So if people will come with some ideas, it's not always that we have to implement these ideas throughout all the city. It's just to leave a space for testing it. And if it works, we can replicate. If it doesn't, it can be adapted, it can be changed. So the city planning should not be like in the Soviet time that we have the generic plan, which is very strict and everything is set up and then we have to obey. No, it's for the people to adapt. So rules are important, but it's good to have flexibility as well.
So one more instrument, like a platform for testing, actually, to work with.
Absolutely, which allows also the grassroots movements, which is very important to have space for it. And just maybe a word to the audience. for the authorities, don't be afraid to invite people, go to people, because they will not come to you probably in the current circumstances. And for the people, for the community members, don't be afraid to come and raise your voice, because it is important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, audience, applause, but still, yes, still we have a question, so please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity and for this knowledge and experience. My question will be more practical. When we are talking about the green areas development, for example, in Ukraine, accessibility and mobility became a key factor how to provide the number of green areas in some living districts. But when we're talking about walking access, there is no approaches in current legislation how to evaluate it. There is no requirements in urban planning. So according to your experience, is there some 15 minutes walking access requirements or 10 minutes walking access requirements? Do you think about that? Do you involve it in your projects?
Yes, absolutely. But we have to divide the obligations, the regulations which are fixed and we have to follow, and the possibilities which we have as cities, as authorities. You can create as many parks as you want in your village, despite no matter what is the legislation, as long as you have the land available. So the rules are okay to be there to create the generic scheme, but then you should be flexible in applying them. If you speak practically about preparing the green areas, it is important to create connections between them, because even if they are small, but if they are connected, it really changes the ambience and brings the diversity to the cities. And another example from Brussels, where I live, it's really tight, it's historical city, so the streets are quite narrow and there is no space for greening. So what the city does, they call it green acupuncture. So they put really like one tree and a bank or a flower bed, creating small public spaces. And it really works, because then the magnitude of it, if you do it in many places and districts, that matters. And really it brings changes to the city and to the ambience.
Thank you so much. Thank you. One more question is.
Well, actually, it's not a question, it's an impression. So thank you very much for presentation. I was thinking that maybe it would be worth starting to organize a 3-week course online where all the municipality workers and governors local could listen about the coherent urban planning and maybe it would also be a great idea to make the politicians, the ones that would like to be elected maybe on the next elections, be obliged to get a certificate of the course of this kind.
Thank you for this remarks. Actually, it is a good remark about the politicians, because I think engaging with people for the local politicians really helps them to win the next election. It's also my observation.